Welcome to the second Continuity Insights podcast. This podcast series will run each month, appearing first in our monthly digital magazine and later on our website. We're also working on a subscription service using iTunes that we hope to have available in the coming months. Information about upcoming podcasts will be made available on the Continuity Insights LinkedIn group or via our weekly CI Bulletin e-newsletter, which you can subscribe to at continuityinsights.com/subscribe. This month, we're taking a look at the state of the job market for business continuity professionals and the factors that are driving higher salaries and promotions, such as certification and technical skills. Here to shed some light on the current employment opportunities and the value of certifications is Cheyene Haase, a Continuity Insights editorial advisory board member and president of BC Management, a recruiting firm dedicated to the business continuity industry. Thanks for joining us today, Cheyene.
Thank you for having me, Luke.
So let's start by talking about the state of the business continuity job market. How are things now compared to the dark days of the recession back in late 2008 and 2009?
Well, the job market is still improving. It's not improving as quickly as many would like. Companies are still very conservative with their hiring decisions. And it's also important to note that it takes some time to recover after recession, and usually permanent staffing is the last to recover. Usually contract staffing tends to pick up first. And the reason being is it takes some time for companies to approve additional headcount. Now, it's also important to note that, we do get a lot of inquiries for contract positions, BC Management does, but it's important to note that BC Management, we don't see as many contract positions even though companies are hiring. Two reasons behind that is we market ourselves as permanent placement specialists, and also because we would never want to compete against our clients who are, of course, in the consulting business. It's also important to note that I get a lot of questions regarding, what industry sector is hiring, the geography of where a lot of these positions are coming up. And currently, most of the positions we've had tend to be predominantly within the financial services area. But this industry cut back more so than any other industry during the recession. Our positions are also across the board, USA, Asia Pacific. It's really a challenge to say that, there's one particular region hiring more so than another region.
Okay, so do you have any tips for business continuity professionals that are currently looking for work, and is it all about networking?
Networking is incredibly, incredibly important. There are so many available forums out there that candidates who are looking, and even if you're not looking, you should be tapping in and taking advantage of several of these local associations. And just to name a few, there's the Association of Contingency Planners, there's a Contingency Planning Exchange, NEDRIX, which is Northeast Disaster Recovery Information Exchange, BURPA, which is Business Resumption Planners Association in Chicago, MADRA, etc. There's so many out there. It's also important to tap into LinkedIn. There's several group sessions in there. It's also really important to stay positive as you're going through your job search. And I've been telling a lot of people this if they've been looking for quite some time. It's important to make a list of action items that you want to accomplish each day. It might be something as simple as looking on, 10 different websites for job opportunities, or contacting, 5 of your previous associates and inquiring on job opportunities. And it's really important to just stay positive and accomplish, 1 or 5 things every day, and don't get caught up in the negative aspect that things are taking a little bit longer to recover.
Now, before we launch into our series of reader questions, I've heard you mention a few times the need for business continuity professionals to maintain their marketability in order to both move up the corporate ladder or to find a more senior position with a new employer. Can you tell us a little bit more about how one maintains their marketability?
Yeah, well, it's essential to really develop, first and foremost, a career path. It's really hard to determine, where you want to be and how to market yourself appropriately if you don't really have a career path set aside on where you want to be 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years from now. So people need to write it down. I'm telling people this all the time. Physically write down what job you want to be 3 years, not just what job, but your ideal company, your ideal boss, your ideal team. And write those notes down 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. And once you have that career path established, you need to take a look at each job or where you want to be in that time frame and the credentials you should have to get each position. So, once you have established the credentials needed for each position, you can review your own credentials and from there determine what you need to build upon. You may need to strengthen your management skills, your personnel management, your budget management, program management, leadership. Do you need any additional degrees or certifications or specific industry expertise? And then from there, it's really important to review, just as if you were doing work, within your program, a gap analysis, review your career plan path every 6 months and make sure that you're on track to accomplish what you want to accomplish and that you are getting the credentials and skill sets to maintain your marketability to be able to move into that next level once the opportunity presents itself.
Okay, BC Management released its BCM compensation report back in March, and one of the things I found most interesting was the fact that 25% of those who received a pay rise in 2010 attributed it to gaining a certification. This leads into our first reader question, which says, how important is certification for marketability and compensation, and are any certifications more valuable than others?
Yes. Well, certification is incredibly important to a candidate's marketability, and I have to say I really dislike my part of the job if I have to pass on a candidate or not submit their resume because they do not have a certification. So more and more companies are not only giving a preference to certified professionals, but they are requiring it. So having that certification is incredibly marketable, and it will help you open up your path to more job opportunities. Also, more and more candidates are obtaining multiple certifications to be even that much more marketable within their job search. And more employers than ever before are requiring candidates to be certified because they're relying on the certifying bodies to do their due diligence in verifying a professional's knowledge and expertise. So companies are relying on the certifying bodies to do a lot of that work for them, basically certify the individual in the profession. Now, our studies indicate that certified professionals do tend to out-earn their non-certified peers. That our data has indicated that for probably going back 6 or 7 years now. Companies are certainly willing to pay for certified professionals, pay for that expertise, pay for the understanding that that individual does meet the requirements within the industry. And the certifications that we see that yield the most value among employers are going to be the MBCP, the CBCP, the MBCI, the FBCI, and those four are predominantly from the DRI International and the Business Continuity Institute. There's also the CISSP, the PMP, and the ITEL. They get a lot of credibility. But our report goes into, it'd be a lot of information to throw at this podcast on the compensation range for every certification, but we do have that available on our comprehensive USA compensation report.
Our next reader question relates to the corporate respect for the BC role. He says, I don't see BC managers ever getting promoted upwards, always horizontally. Do BC managers ever get promoted upwards into senior exec positions?
Yes. Business continuity managers do get promoted upwards, and we've also placed professionals at the senior executive role. In fact, we're getting more and more of those roles in the last 2 years. The issue really comes down to that there are really less of these positions to go around. Few companies have BCM senior executive roles within an SVP level or EVP level. The bottom line is it really depends on the company's commitment to BCM and staffing at the senior executive level. Those companies that give less of a commitment to the BCM program tend to cap out at a director or VP role, and thus they're not getting into the SVP role. So those positions are prime, they're primo, and there are certainly less of them to go around.